she's going to get pimples.
We're having a good time with Shirley, and we're having a good time with Reuven.
Thank you for giving us their number. We're having a ball.
Muriel's
Muriel.
throwing trash away because this
Okay.
Just wanted to be here.
You have to go throw the trash.
LBJ Ranch. So you got to be very careful with what you go around with.
And it's
The candy bar and the dinosaur. Pepsi.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yontif.
That's right. You're right. All right.
Okay.
Catch you later.
Got it?
Got it.
Now, Shirley in front of the Junction School, then on to the birthplace and cemetery. We'll visit the birthplace and cemetery, then continue on in front of the Texas White House up to the show barn and back to the state park. We hope you enjoy the tour as much as we enjoy having you visit with us. In the state park, they have a lovely nature trail you might enjoy. See longhorn cattle, buffalo, deer, and wild sometimes.
You know, President Johnson dearly loved this country, and I've got to admit there's something special about it. The president sometimes talked about his feelings for the hill country, and, well, why don't we let him tell you about it in his own words? He recorded this a few months before he died here in January 1973.
I guess every person feels part of the place where he was born. He wants to go back to the surroundings that he knew as a child. And this is my country, the hill country of Texas. And through the years, when time would permit, here is where I would always return, to the Pedernales River, the scenes of my childhood. There's something different about this country from any other part of the nation. The climate is generally pleasant. The sun is generally bright. The air seems to be always clean, and the water is pure. The moons are a little fuller here, the stars are a little brighter. And I don't know how to describe the feeling other than I guess we all search at times for serenity. And it's serene here. And there's something about this section that brings new life, new hope, and really a balanced and better viewpoint after you've been here a few days.
Sign into law the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which he will tell you about on his recording.
I felt a very strong desire to go back to the beginnings of my own education, to be reminded and to remind others of that magic time when the world same time. Come over here, Miss Katie, and sit down, will you? I started school when I was 4 years old, and they tell me, Miss Kate, that I recited my first lesson.
They decided to build a guest house here, showing the lifestyle of a family like the president had when he was a little boy during the time period he lived here. The house is built in the same style with the dog trotter, the breezeway down the center of it, which keeps the house a lot cooler in the summertime. In fact, it's so much cooler out there that the kids used to take their blankets and pillows and sleep out there during the summertime. Now, the two doors in the back of the dog trough were not part of the original style. That was something that Johnson added to the house because the breezeway worked a little bit too well in the wintertime. It got a little drafty. Now, the house is approximately the same size. It sits on the same side with the two foundations of the fireplaces marking the original side. Now, there are a couple of things you might want to watch for as you go through the house. Up here in the small room, the nursery, there's a little clown box that the president gave as a gift to one of his favorite aunts as a little boy. Across the hall over here in the east bedroom, there's a hand-crocheted bedspread, which is a replica of a gift that the president, Mrs. Johnson, received from Grandmother Baines for their wedding. Now, this is where we get to a slight problem in our story. The president said he was going over here in the east bedroom. His mom's sitting across the hall. You decide for yourself who remembers more about the day. Across the hall on the fireplace mantel, there's a picture of the president when he was 6 months old. First picture ever taken of the president. From there, we'll go back to the kitchen dining room area where there are two pieces of furniture you want to notice. One is a wooden chair with a cowhide seat. That's also has a hole in the cowhide seat, and that's how you'll be able to identify. Now that is the only piece of furniture that was used by the Johnson family during the time period that they lived here. The other piece of furniture you want to notice is the little high chair with the word Ladybird carved in the back of it. Now that is the little high chair she actually used as a little girl. Does everybody know what her real name was? No. Her real name was Claudia. She received the nickname of Ladybird when she was just 2 years old from a nursemaid that looked at her and says, "Now dear, you're just as cute as a little ladybird." The nickname stuck, she can sign her marriage license, Ladybird. From there we'll head out back. We'll see the sister, the dinner bell used to call the men into the fields, and a barn with water and restrooms in it. After you look around out back, you'll take the path down to the right to the cemetery where President Johnson is buried. His tombstone is the large pink one in the center. Now, as we go through the house, we'll listen to a tape by Ladybird. We ask that you please go single file. Also, please do not touch or handle anything because a lot of the stuff in the house is rather old and antique and hard to replace. And are there any questions at this point? Oh, I know you all have at least one question. When do we see the house, right? Let's go see.
Bride, Rebecca Raines Johnson, across this threshold to their first home. Texas was still close to its frontier. Arrowheads left from Indian camps could still be found along the riverbed, and many old-timers could spin a yarn about the Civil War, and even occasionally the Battle of San Jacinto. Texas was still a young state. By the end of the year, in the United States, 50,000 automobiles had been manufactured, and we were soon to hear that Orville Wright had made his second successful flight of 1 hour and 14 minutes. But none of these events were to equal, in the eyes of the young couple who lived here, their own blessed event, which came on August 27, 1908. In the words of my mother-in-law, that was the day Lyndon Baines Johnson discovered America.
Look at the size of this elm tree. Put it in perspective. The tree has to be well over 300 years old. And the state and the Park Service is doing everything they can to keep it growing and alive. Really beautiful. Ah, here we are.
Sailor.
Ah, there we are.
There we are. Enough.
Beef, George.
You know, this is really...
Peekaboo!
Oh, come on. Oh, they call it.
This is really...
How sweet it is, Bob.
How sweet it is to be in the Commodore.
It's called Pish Posh.
Marcel, this is almost like a wonderful golf course that you have in the back
That's
of
right.
your
That's
house. Yeah, we had to come about 30 miles out to find it. But the weather is gorgeous.
I guess everybody's getting back on.
Yeah.
Wait, come
Don't leave it on us. We're enjoying the aroma.
It's fun. Reaches of habit, but this one's waiting to go across. This one's waiting to go across. These are Herefords, aren't they?
Dam, shortly after he bought his uncle's old place, what we know as the LBJ Ranch, back in 1952. The dam made a convenient crossing point for the Johnsons, also made a mighty fine swimming hole above it. Water's about 10 feet deep and nice and cool on a hot summer day, and it backs up a reservoir that's used for irrigation. When the LBJ Ranch served as the Texas White House, there were all sorts of elaborate communications and security systems. We're coming up on one of those Secret Service checkpoints now. The guardhouse on the right was manned by a security guard while President Johnson was in office.
Although these security houses are not managed at this time, Ms. Johnson does have security around the clock on her person here at the ranch or wherever she may be. They have cameras at each side of the gate to watch you approach the gate. Speakers, they'll ask your destination or what business you might have here at the ranch. Sunday and Monday, we do not go through this gate unless we have permission through Ms. Johnson. Those are her days of privacy at Texas White House. Tuesday through Saturday, we do go in front of the house. Try to keep this in mind if you bring your family or friends back to visit. Ms. Johnson has given permission to go by today. As we go along this Park Road 49, if you'll watch to the right, you'll notice the airstrip, which is over 6,000.
Leaders from all over the world with a specialty in the house, Texas barbecue. Just ahead is the LBJ Ranch House, known as the Texas White House.
I first came to this house as a very young boy. This was the big house, was in advancing years and poor health, and she wondered if I wouldn't buy the place, and I did.
I will stop you in front of the Texas White House a few minutes. Those wishing to take pictures, you'll do so from the bus. We do not depart from the bus at this location. Ms. Johnson still calls this home. She spends about a third of her time here at the front of the bay windows to do her thinking and memo writing, looking out over the Pedernales. With a dome on top of the roof was the president's bath. Beyond that, the three large windows to the far right, the president's bedroom, where he had his fatal heart attack. On the other side or north of the president's bedroom is located Ms. Johnson's room. She calls her forever room. It has bookcases, a fireplace, bay windows. Directly north of the sitting room, den, and living room is located the carport, kitchen, and dining area. The dining area can seat 30 as comfortably as 2. Upstairs are 6 bedrooms and 5 baths. Directly over the rockford portion of the house was Lucy and Linda's room when they were girls here at home. We have Ms. Johnson's voice narrating, telling about the additions on this lovely 28-room house throughout the years, which I'm quite proud of. My husband did the addition construction.
We realized we did need some more bathrooms and dressing rooms upstairs. That was one of the earliest changes, to turn the east wing into 3 rather nice suites, each with a bath and 2 of them with dressing rooms. One of the first downstairs of our very own, just between our 2 rooms. And then, as you know, we came back in January of '69 to live for the rest of our lives.
Here in the front yard, under the beautiful live oak trees, is where they along the banks of Lake LBJ, heading for the water, and holler my brakes are out. I can't stop, plunge in, and keep going. Can you imagine yourself in that vehicle at that time, not knowing it can be driven on water as well as land? The red 34 Ford the president used to take his guests deer hunting. Red and green wagon was given to the family by Ann Hunter Bush. Chuck wagon was handmade, presented to Ms. Johnson to use along the banks of the Pedernales for a May 2nd barbecue of '76, a benefit for the Memorial Grove in Washington. To the left is the guest house, Hard Hills Homes, and the telephone building. Plane, which will not fit in this hangar, so they've placed a new hangar at the north end of the airstrip. But the hangar to the right is quite comfortable inside. It has wall-to-wall carpeting. They even have a jukebox inside. On the front has a presidential seal, but they could roll back the carpet and dance if they wished. Christmas and New Year parties were spent here in the hangar. Dignitaries, family and friends, people that work for me here at the ranch and elsewhere, all enjoyed their hospitality through the holidays. My husband and I have enjoyed these movies and holidays of the President Johnson.
Cutting and baling hay, irrigating fields, and working cattle. It depends on the time of year and whether the cattle are being readied for market or whether they're grazing. Through proper use of irrigation and fertilizer and the introduction of coastal Bermuda grass, President Johnson increased the carrying capacity of this small Texas ranch, about 2,000 acres, to far above the usual ratio of cattle and acres in this country. Except along the river bottoms, the soil in the hill country is generally poor and the rainfall is sparse. President Johnson held that even though he was in Washington most of the time, the best fertilizer for land is the footsteps of the owner. And he took great pride in the ranch and knowing every foot of it. He found his greatest relaxation during the time he was majority leader, vice president, and especially when he was president, in returning to the ranch, walking or riding along the river and in the pastures. He loved to take his family and guests on such tours, checking the pasture grasses, the condition of the cattle, watching the deer, and seeing that all equipment was in proper working order. He wasn't a stranger to a saddle or a tractor seat. One of his favorite rituals was to watch the sunset from the vantage point of the highest portion of the ranch. The fading of the sun's last rays and the electric lights coming on in farmhouses and barns along the Pedernales. Co-ops in the whole country.
All this area from the airstrip fence, the Hodges fence, from the cross fence up ahead, area we have just covered. It includes the hangar, the buildings surrounding the house, the Texas White House, have all been donated to the National Park by the President, Ms. Johnson, before the President's death, giving Ms. Johnson life residency in the main ranch house, the use of the buildings and the hangar. President Johnson...
Because he couldn't be here all the time, he selected Dale Malachek, a graduate of Texas A&M University, to be his foreman, and urged him to stay abreast of all latest developments in ranching. He believed in sharing equipment and experience with his neighbors, a practice that was prevalent along the Pedernales before he was born.
Along the airstrip fence, an irrigation pipe coming up directly from the Pedernales River to the dirt, aiding the pilots taking off and landing here at the airstrip, pointing directly into the wind at all times. At night, the tetrahedron is lit up and can be seen from far distances since it is on the highest area of the ranch.
Oh, darn.
They're trained to eat out of troughs.
Yeah.
Fredericksburg is an old German town. It's also the hometown of Admiral Nimitz, and the state park nicely displays Admiral Nimitz Museum there. I highly recommend it to you if you have an opportunity to stop, or if you're going to be in Fredericksburg tomorrow. If you go east on 290, about 14 miles will bring you to the hometown of Lyndon, City, Texas. National Park has the President's boy that's home there. They'll begin tours again in the morning at 9 o'clock if any of you are going to be in.
We're having a great time. I'm churning butter.
I'm going to churn butter.
You're churning butter. Coming up to John. She makes the greatest challah.
We said hello to LBJ.
We're going to take
How big is the fish? That fish?
All right,
We're going to bring the motorhome up here and Baldwin County and Milton County.
That's right.
hooray.
And
Just don't milk a bull.
And dodge all the pecan pies on the
All
lawn.
the pecan pies on the lawn.
We are having
Yeah.
a wonderful time.
We're having a
Marcel?
great time. And the weather's beautiful.
Okay.
Beverly Hillbillies?
Yeah.
He says, I'm only kidding, after all. I wanted you to have what you want. You come out, I got a gift for you. She says, I'm hiding. He says, it's a beautiful diamond. He says,
In the closet.
I'm hiding in the front closet. Right.
That part.
He's away. Never heard that? I never heard about my sandwich. Daddy couldn't look. Daddy couldn't look.
Where she is.
Oh. why couldn't you go?
I got it. But no, I love my jobs because I'm so happy that I could help.
Hi, Sam. Are you shooting us?
Yeah, smile a little bit for a change. Show me your teeth.
Thou shalt not photograph the bleeding. Never.
Wait, no.
Colonies north.
Firecrackers.
Yeah.
This is right across the street.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, that's nice.
No, it's
Because you're on Margaret. We did have, we should go on the everybody knows about the height of,
Hi, Bob. How you been? How is everybody?
She finds a picture of you like
Just fine.
Well, maybe they would now, because our lives.
No, they won't.
Last year, like,
So when she
no, they had.
You would go there.
I would walk there.
And I would go
Let me tell you what I do. I stand out in front of the day school, I walk from collar to collar, and say, did you go over it? Because you know that the Israeli who opened the little bakery there, he killed his own business.
That's what I
Yes,
heard.
he killed his own business, he charged too much.
Wasn't that great?
And I heard what that is.
No, wasn't that good?
And he was very, she was very hard to, you know, they didn't know how to talk to her. Even if you're nasty to Jewish guys, but you speak kind of English has Spanish. We have a group of friends. We always ice cream pie. Have some music.
הם ביקרו אותנו באוגוסט.
Because I left it out.
ואז היא הייתה כמעט בת שנה. אני הולך לארץ טוב. אנחנו ניסע, ואז היא תהיה בת שנה. ביום הולדת שלנו.
You have to really make sure you cut there.
אולי אחרי סוכות, אני רוצה להיות בזמן החגים כאן.
Wait a minute, I gotta find my cards.
You're giving it to anybody in particular?
Oh, yes.
Johnny.
Yeah, all the transvestites.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? What's the difference between a review and a show?
I could stay home and go look at myself in a suit in the window. I have to go look at these guys. They're better.
Sid, what's the difference between a review and a show?
Once
I say
they're
try
playing
to
it
get
over and over.
Yeah.
Single entertainer.
Like the show is a single. Oh, I got you.
People like that.
Yeah.
I know you're taking.
Yeah. No, but I know, but besides
You
that,
is
Wayne
the
Newton.
Foley Berger.
Wait, Bill, just, he's very good from what you've seen him once.
You see, that's it.
Oh, they're still there.
The only one I thought was that he still
The
had.
Tropicana.
Because
Are you
of the,
recording?
musician strike.
Oh,
All music was canceled, so they.
We went
well,
down
is it
there.
recording like it sings in Spanish?
I just loved it. And we tried it.
Can you see my eye?
I'll tell you.
No, but it's showing my picture taking.
Oh, I just wanted to show you my eye up close.
We go up on the arcade, then we take the bicycle out.
Yeah?
Then we take, and just the new hotel from Circus Circus.
Yeah.
Smile!
We were leaving.
You're on candid camera.
No, the
Excalibur.
Excalibur, yeah.
And then we would take the bus back, which you love.
Ice cream.
What we put, I had the best fun.
When we went there, they were
Did you
opening
see
up
Mirage?
one
They
next
say
to
it's
the
gorgeous.
Caesar's Palace, which one with the red volcano. You need some help?
This is a Jewish town,
I haven't been in Vegas in 4 years, 5 years.
I would have liked to see the oil.
I'll help you.
You're
Abby, I
supposed to
don't
look
think
at
it's
6
about
4
all
years
I've
ago,
got
you go to the place.